As we continue to look at how John the Baptist responds to his own message and the recognition of the crowds, how he deals with success and that sense of how secure he is in his own identity, to help us look at our identity and how we deal with success. So often we look at how to avoid failure and how to deal with mistakes and how to repair the damage of the past. We don't actually stop to think about how we prepare for success. And John the Baptist, he gives us examples of how to do that. And I'm suggesting that we see three responses of John the Baptist to the adulation of the crowds, to this recognition of a successful ministry. And the first one of those we're looking at is the challenge of status. In our last session, we said that the first P that helps us to understand how John responds to this challenge of status is preparation. He'd learnt that sense of servanthood and he'd waited until he'd called. But the second thing we see is that preparation had also helped him to know his own purpose. Verse 16, remember, he says, I'm not even worthy to untie the sandals of the person who's coming. I'm not even worthy to be his slave. For the slaves at the time, untying someone's sandals, remember, these were dirty, dusty roads where animals would poop on the floor, and you'd walk through all of that, that mess, to put it politely. When you got to a house, the role of a servant was to wash someone's feet. And the first thing you'd have to do is to take someone's sandals off, even before you wash the feet. And rabbis at the time who had their disciples, rabbis could ask their disciples to do anything, but even they wouldn't ask their disciples to untie their sandals, because it was the lowest of the most menial jobs that could possibly be done, that was even below what a disciple would do. And so when John's saying he wouldn't even do that, he's recognising something of his own position and his own purpose. These years of preparation had given him a clear purpose to prepare the way for the one who's coming. He clearly knows his own role and he clearly knows his own responsibilities. A number of years back, I used to work for the National Audit Office in London, and their role was to advise the government on how to spend the nation's money wisely. They would carry out the accountancy for the major government departments, the public sector departments like the Ministry of Defence and the Ministry of Health. But they would also do projects looking at how projects were undertaken and how government money was spent. And if you listen to the news, every now and again you'll hear the government spending watchdog have published a report talking about something or other. And I remember that one of the papers that was written, one of the reports that was done, was about being what's called an intelligent client. And an intelligent client was described as knowing what you're good at, knowing what your core job is, and not meddling or getting distracted with things that aren't core to you. So in other words, for the audit office, if your job is to audit, then don't get involved in trying to do facilities management. Employ someone whose core role is to be a facilities manager, to manage your facilities, and don't meddle with what isn't core to what you're good at. And I've always found that to be a really challenging idea. And for John the Baptist, what we have is he knows his own place, he knows his role, he knows his responsibilities, he knows what he's called to do. He knows what his purpose is. And I want to suggest to you that if we're going to avoid the mistakes of success, it's actually understanding what our purpose is understanding what we're called to do and what we're not called to do.